Welcome back to another episode of Grit on the Rocks podcast, Friday Fumas edition. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Today we have a special show. You know, we did it a little different this time. We have a special guest, and today we'll be talking to Chance Summers, the CEO of 1689 Cigars. 1689cigars.com. They also have their Cigar Lounge. They're working on 1689 coffee. They're working on a 1689 brewery. I mean, there's just so much information being shared on this episode. So I just want you guys to really pay attention to the conversation where we talk about our faith. I talk a bit about myself, my faith, and how I got to where I am now. And so does Chance. He also shares part of his testimony, his story, and the importance of having spaces like this, like Grit on the Rocks, like groups that they have. It's just great stuff being shared here. I think it's just an amazing episode, and you guys need to listen all the way to the end. So without further ado, we have Chance Summers, 1689 Cigars. Let's go.
The views and opinions expressed by the host, guest, and/or participants of this show do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Buenos Diaz Media LLC, its associates, partners, and show sponsors. The content is intended for entertainment purposes and should not be construed as professional advice. Listener discretion is advised.
This podcast is a Buenos Diaz Media production.
This is the Grit on the Rocks podcast, where raw conversations meet smooth sips. Pull up a chair, pour your favorite drink, puff on your favorite cigar, and join us as we dive into the convos that matter. No scripts, no barriers, just unfiltered truth served straight up. Cheers to the real ones out there. Salud.
Oh, Washington State. Is that, I mean, my geography is...
West Coast.
Okay, you're in the South, right? You're in Kentucky?
Yeah, Kentucky, Tennessee. Well, I'm in Tennessee right now, but my house is in Kentucky.
Nice. I have a... Oh, I guess it's a friend. I was part of this real estate investors mastermind, and one of the members, well, actually one of the mentors was from Tennessee, or is from Tennessee.
Yeah. So, do you do real estate? That's what you do?
I started getting into it. I never wanted to stop. It's just, you know, COVID happened, everything changed, and it just put me on pause, basically.
Yeah.
Everybody was buying real estate, and then everything was going up, and then you know, we got our new president, and then interest rates went up, and it just got wild. So I had bought like one unit in Alabama. I was looking more towards the South.
Yeah.
Because of the tenant laws. Oh my God, you're so lucky you can smoke and freaking record at the same time.
Well, hey, so here's the trick. If you get one of the Rabbit Air A3s, you can just put a little close. I always take foam, put it at the bottom of the door, and run that bad boy, and your wife won't even be able to tell you smoked in that room.
Dude, not in New
crazy.
York City. Oh God. But yeah, so I started looking towards the South.
Oh, you're in New York?
Yeah.
Oh man, you're in communist country, dude.
Exactly.
I just moved out of Central Cal, and it was like a breath of fresh air.
I always tell my wife, I was like, I think we belong either in Texas, Florida, Tennessee, somewhere down there. Because
you should move down here, man. Like, we have a thriving church, thriving culture, really good real estate investments, because we're in a military town.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a great place. you never feel unsafe because everybody's carrying.
Mm-hmm.
Crimes to a geographical location, like not to go on that side of the town
Yeah.
after 8. Um, California was not like that.
Oh, I've heard.
Yeah.
I've never been. The closest I've gotten to California is Vegas.
Oh,
But
yeah.
yeah, like I follow, a lot of these like YouTube channels and podcasters and all that, and you hear like the stories and I remember like when the whole COVID was happening, and you have people like Rogan talking about it, like it's just gotten insane, and a lot of people have ended up moving to Vegas and Texas, and that's the same thing that happened here. Everyone started moving. So New York, I mean, it's a big state. I live in the city. And if you would drive, let's say, maybe an hour, hour and a half from where we're at, you'd find like houses, very nice, beautiful houses, land for, great prices.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit. But the problem with New York is like New York State is the same laws that apply in the city apply in the state when you talk about like tenant landlord laws and stuff like that. So
But yeah,
definitely
like water laws and stuff like that.
I was like, I didn't want to invest in here. So that's why we just started looking into like, South and I was like, oh, Alabama. Oh, after 30 days, if you get an eviction notice, you really got to get out. Okay. So we invested in Alabama. We invested in in Augusta, Georgia. And that was like a whole other story. I bought in Alabama. We went to Alabama after we had, we did everything online, and then we drove to Alabama. This is like in the hype of COVID. So we drove over there. And then when we got into Georgia, I decided, hey, it went so well in Alabama, I don't need to go to Georgia. I met this guy at the mastermind, and he's a property manager, and he assured me that, we'd look in great areas. Anyway, it just ended up being bad deals, so I ended up selling everything we bought. We had 3 units in Georgia. We just sold them off. So now we're looking to reallocate into something different.
Yeah. So it's illegal to smoke inside of your house in New York?
Yes. I mean,
Wow.
you have laws here, like let's say, so we bought a co-op, and because we wanted to stay in the city, we were renters, and when we decided, we wanted to buy something, we were like, okay, either we move towards upstate, and then we got to drive, hour and a half to work every day and back, or we just buy an apartment in the city and we stay within the city, and then in the future we'll buy a house if we have smaller children, which now we have a little girl, and now we're looking into like, okay. But
Gotta come to Tennessee. It's beckoning you right now.
So it's like, yeah, the laws here, they get a little weird. Like building laws, they say you can as long as the smell doesn't go out. But you're in an apartment. We have a baby in here, so it's like I'm not doing that.
Yeah. I actually I have 0 cigars at my home, except for I have 2 cigars from Rush Limbaugh's collection.
Nice.
In a humidor that I'm going to frame up and put in the lounge. That's the only cigars I have at home. My wife prefers if I keep my cigars at the Cigar Lounge.
Yeah. I mean, right now, yeah, like I have a little humidor here, like one of those little cabby humidors. And then I have like a small one like inside my bookshelf where, she can't reach. And
Yeah, absolutely.
for now, but I don't know. Let's see. We have been talking about I think what holds us here more is like our jobs, But yeah, it's just that's what held us. Like we have family and friends in like Florida, and I have friends in Texas, and I have friends in Tennessee. It's just I like the country life better. I mean, I lived a bunch of years in PR, in the countryside of PR.
Okay.
It's just, I'm used to that lifestyle. Like I don't know. You can do way more stuff, and then like you say, when we're in a communist part of the country,
Yeah, that's just a joke. I mean, California and New York are probably they're the armpit of our country.
Mhm, mhm.
I guess one could be the butt, one could be the armpit. You choose.
Yeah, I always say New York is the butt because we follow everything California does.
Yeah,
I mean, that's how I see it. It's just annoying, but all right.
yeah.
Anyway,
Enough with my chit chat.
so this is Grit on the Rocks podcast for all of you guys who are listening. And this is our Friday Fumas edition, right? So usually Fridays I try to drop an episode and I try to incorporate cigar talk. You know, we're not officially a cigar podcast. I don't think I know enough about the cigar. I just recently got into it, and to be honest, I fell in love with the culture. And I started with this idea of this podcast, and I was like, I would really like to incorporate the whole cigar talk and whiskey talk and blah, blah, blah. Now, for those of you who are listening and watching, I want to say I stumbled onto this page on Facebook. And to be honest, I mean, this is the first time me and my guest here talk. So for those of you listening, we have Chance Summers, right? I want to say I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Chance Summers, yep, that's me.
As long as it's
like,
not
take
like
a chance.
Chance. Okay, so Chance
Well,
Summers.
That's how you would say it in Spanish, is chance, right?
Chance, yeah.
Yeah.
So funny thing is, I stumble onto this page and I see your cigar page, right? I don't know. I guess it just showed up on my feed.
Yeah, I think I ran an ad for the group. That's what it was. And then Facebook shut it down.
Yes.
That's what it was, yeah.
Okay. So it's you want to say the name of the page?
Yeah, 1689 Cigars.
1689 Cigars.
So 1689 Cigar Club. Yeah.
Okay. So funny thing is, and again, me and you have never spoken. So, I mean, I was telling my wife about this, which is why I found it so cool when we did connect and you accepted to come on the podcast. You have no idea how much this page spoke to me. And I'm going to explain why. I come from an upbringing as a Catholic, right? I want to say a fake Catholic because we were one of those Catholics like, what religion are you? Yeah, we're Catholic. Never went to church. I
Catholic
remember
on Easter and Christmas.
Exactly. And not
Yeah.
even that. Like I remember maybe twice when I was a kid, I went to church. Anyway, fast forward as I got older, I started reading the Bible on my own because I wanted to know.
Yeah.
You hear so much of this and that, and you always ask, oh, so where does it say that? Well, I heard it at church, or I heard it from my pastor or my priest. And I was like, you know what? I want to know. I want to read myself. So anyway, I got into the Bible. Fast forward, I ended up converting to, accepting Christ as my Lord and Savior and going into a non-denominational evangelical Christian church, right?
Yeah.
But this church had, I want to say in Spanish, they say that it has like Pentecostal roots to it.
Yeah.
So, again, fine. Fast forward, like this is me young in my 20s. So, you have your ups and downs and whatever. I have my son and I wanted to raise him knowing about the word of God and church and the life and blah, blah, blah. So I end up moving to PR and I end up at this very small, tiny country, religious, super Pentecostal church.
Yeah.
Right? The reason, which I always said I would never do, right? I mean, nothing against those who, practice it or live in it, whatever. As long as you're worshiping God, I guess it is what it is. But anyway, the way they got me to go into this church is the pastor comes to my house because my cousin was part of that church. And the pastor comes to my house and he says, hey, I just came from a retreat in Florida and God spoke to us. And God told us that we need to give liberties to the people. Meaning we're going to break away from this no jewelry, no women with short hair. Women couldn't use makeup. Women couldn't use pants. I mean, a whole bunch of rules that they had. So I was like, oh, okay, I could be part of this. I go to this church, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it's just as years go by, you start adapting the mentality, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, I felt like I was living a life that wasn't me. I was pretending to be this person because I wanted to please the church.
Yeah.
I forgot the fact that after 3 months, I guess God regretted telling them to give liberties and they went back to their old ways. So that was my cue to get out. So I end up at this other church of a friend of mine, and that's where I stood. Life happens, and you grow up again. You carry all these beliefs of how you shouldn't do this or that or this or that because God doesn't like it, and you have to pick one, and you have to separate yourself from the world, and that is what I did.
Yeah.
So it comes to the point where, again, I feel like I'm not free. I don't feel free. I love God, but I don't feel free.
Yeah.
I was a minister at one point. I had a worship group. Like we had a worship band, and we became chaplains, and we visited the sick, and we visited, those in jail. We did the whole thing. As life happens, I widowed, and I decided to walk away from everything.
Yeah.
Fast forward to present day, I am very happy. I feel like I'm sorry if I'm going long. I just want to give you the context.
No, you're good. You're good. No, this is good.
And for those that are listening, this is something I've never shared on the podcast. So there you go. Anyway, fast forward to, let's say 12 years later, which is now 2024. I am happily married. I feel like I am finally reconnecting with my relationship personally with God.
Yeah.
Right? When I was a minister and I preached, I always taught the people about the connections between us and God. I always spoke about a relationship with God. It wasn't about religion. It was more about a relationship, is what I always spoke about. And then I came to the conclusion when I left the church and walked away from everything is, so if you spoke about a relationship with God, sometimes in relationships you get upset. You stop talking.
Yeah.
And then you start reconnecting. Maybe little by little you start talking again. And I feel like that's how my relationship with God went. Okay. Fast forward to discovering cigar culture. There's something about it that just I truly love. I like talk about it. I like the camaraderie. I like going to lounges and just connecting with people. I love the business mindset, and I feel like these are the type of places where these conversations happen. So I stumble onto the page, to your page, and I start seeing people talk about cigars, but praising God. Yeah. And that just, it blew my mind. I was like, what? And then I'm like looking, and I'm telling my wife, I was like, can you believe this? She goes, what? I was like, these are men on this page. And most of them, right? I mean, I do follow like the Cigar Aficionado on Facebook, and we all share like our pictures of our cigars and blah, blah, blah. But then I keep seeing people that they post a cigar, and here I am and praising God and maybe a little word or maybe scripture. And to be honest, I'm telling you, with all honesty, it blew my mind in a good way.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, wait, so I can be who I am.
Yeah.
And still worship God. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. I can't make that judgment. I'm assuming is fine. I feel fine doing it.
Yeah.
And also the battle of having, listen, because in this podcast, we have the Friday Fumas and we talk about, again, cigar talk, whiskey talk. The idea behind it is like a conversation that you would have with your bros at a lounge.
Yeah.
That's the premise of the Friday Fumas editions. And then on Tuesdays is also like, we're just shooting the shit, me and my friend or whatever. Me and my brother usually do the podcast, and we'll talk about things that affect men. It's all about situations that men go through. And I mean, we try to put a comedic spin to it, but it's real issues.
Yeah.
Anyway, all that long-winded explanation just to say, I gotta thank you, because this is your creation, this page, and it helped me a lot. It gave me like a totally different perspective, aside from, holy crap, I can make connections in the whole cigar business. There's a ton that I want you to talk about, because it seems like I feel like we're very like-minded. Everything I've seen you do so far, what I've seen on your Facebook, these are conversations I've had with my wife of things that I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm an elder or pastor at a church. It's a Reformed Baptist church, or Iglesia Baptista Reformanda, I think would be.
Reformada, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So my Spanish is poquito. So I know enough to get me in trouble or made fun of, one of the two. I can read Spanish, but I can't speak it. That's just where I'm at.
Okay.
So I grew up unconverted. I grew up as a bastard child, and was converted when I was 16. And so when Christ saved me, my mom married into another family, and I was about to blow my brains out. And a pastor that she married into that family came, knocked on the door, and shared the gospel with me. And God gave me hope. He saved me that day, saved me from myself, saved me from my sins. And then I wandered, not in the sense of like going to illicit sin and just living in it, but I started attending. So there's different sects of. So it seems like you went to a Church of God that was very legalistic or very strenuous, all law, no gospel.
Exactly.
And so I went to a Baptist church. It was the same way. The difference is the Baptist church I went to didn't speak in tongues. Literally, that's probably the only difference that you would see between the Baptist and the Church of God. And so they told me that smoking cigars was a sin, or drinking whiskey was a sin. And my conversation. So you get back to sola scriptura, and so scripture alone. And I would say Jesus turned water into wine. And it wasn't grape juice, because pasteurized grape juice was invented in the 1800s.
Yeah.
And so people drank wine because they couldn't get purified water. There's a lot of just practical reasons why they would do it. So I'd have these conversations with them, and they would give me no answer. They would just say I was being rebellious, or I wouldn't submit to the Holy Spirit. And then they would play God themselves. And so my journey continues, and I got kicked out of Bible college 2 times. Because I would debate the professors, and I would say, I don't think that's what that says. And then I found a Reformed Baptist network, which is what we're a part of, and of local churches that teach the scripture line by line, verse by verse, and they don't skip over the hard ones. And so in Deuteronomy, it talks about God literally commands Israel to go buy wine and strong drink. And the Hebrew word there is actually, like, we could translate it as whiskey or bourbon. And it's a command from God. And so if God commands Israel to go do this, it wouldn't be sin, because God can tempt no man to sin, according to James. Yep. And so I started going down the rabbit hole of like, all right, I think I might be in more of a cultic style of a church than an actual biblical church. Yep. And I went out and pastored in California for 2 years with Iglesia Baptista La Fe. And being around the Latino culture, I definitely saw the legalism that is just in Latino culture in the church. And so I slowly chipped away at it. And by God's grace, they called a pastor there that's doing well now. But the legalism in the church, the only way that you stamp it out is like, because people would always go to the text, your weaker brother's conscience, like you don't offend it. That is true. You shouldn't offend your weaker brother, but the whole context of that scripture is you strengthen their conscience. And so, and then there's also the understanding of he that, like if it is sin to you, it's sin. So like somebody has a conviction that smoking a cigar is sin, then it's sin to you, but it is not sin to general public.
Yeah.
And so like
Use that
I'm
scripture a
just,
lot when I was in
yeah,
church.
yeah. So check that ash out.
Nice.
Guess our Westminster. I got to ash it or it's going to fall in my lap. But the whole context of that was like, okay. And then my wife, she came to me. She actually gave the first cigar or second cigar, or the first cigar I ever had was a Cuban. And I got so sick that I didn't smoke cigars for like 5 years, 3 to 5 years. I don't know the timeline. It's between there.
Yeah.
And my wife says, "Hey, you're playing video games too much. You don't really have the camaraderie that you want. You don't have a masculine culture around you." And that was a pretty dark place in my life when it comes to ministry, and preaching and teaching. It was just everything was hard and rough. So she bought me a box of Sobremesa Brulee Blues, Tobacco and Trust. Probably still one of my favorite cigars to the day because it just has that memory attached to it. And she goes, "Here's a more manly hobby." And she gave me cigars. And then you get into the cigar world and like, this cigar here is $16. You're like, man, I'm spending $400 or $500 a month on cigars. I got to do something to offset this cost. That's how my brain works. That's how I function. And then there's a gentleman, his name's Al Gomez. He's out in Nicaragua, and he has a company called Reform Cigars. And so I became his stateside distribution center. So I started selling the cigars online, and I was like, dude, I love this culture. It's business oriented. It's masculine. It's still, we would call it the third space. You have a first space, it's like your home and your family, those who are intimately connected with you. Your second space would be like your work, where you have acquaintances and not really friends. And then your third space is when the boys get together. They talk business, they talk politics, they talk theology, they talk about their problems. And then you have a little bit of bourbon and a little bit of cigars together. And so we started a culture called the Third Space, and we're actually going to be doing a production called the Third Space Production, where we go around and we interview local cigar lounges and interview people in there. And the whole premise is that men need a space, and I'm not talking about a safe space because the third space isn't a safe space.
Yep.
It's a space where your balls are going to get busted every once in a while. And so where men speak true, and we have a term. I ran a boys' home for 5 years, and I always taught the boys, say it with your chest. If you believe it to be true, stand there, say it. And so that's what goes on in spaces like this. And you see the decline of a third space back when, and this is not against women in the workforce, but this is just how our culture declines. World War II happens, women start going into the factories, then the men get back, and then there's men and women mixed into the workspace. And the old third space used to be the pubs, and then the pubs got turned into clubs because whatever women touch, they make it beautiful. It's just a part of their nature. And so the third space has disappeared because they've revamped or have changed. And so the rise of a third space, so the rise of the cigar lounge is going through the roof. If it's a stock market item, I mean, it's mooning right now. And so to get into the cigar world was like a no-brainer for me. And then kind of threw my savings into this, and by God's grace, we've sold to 47 of the states. We've have our product in all 50 states.
Nice.
And we've sold internationally, and we're building a brand that supports church plants, supports local pastors. We're about to partner with another cigar company. I think I have their business card here. No, this is not it. But they support the ending of sex slavery, and so we're really turning our culture into mission focused. Obviously there's profit margins and there's certain things for people that we have to pay. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's our cigar company in a nutshell.
Freaking awesome. I mean, you're right. The whole third space, since you put it that way. Again, That's how Grit on the Rocks was born. That's why Grit on the Rocks was born.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I told my friend when I had this idea. Then I just started like putting it together, and like I have a small media company where we do like video editing and stuff like that. We do like podcasts for other people, and the first thing I started doing was putting together an intro. There was no show. There was no like real idea behind it. I just started putting the intro, and I was like, I want this to be a space, not a safe space, but a space for men. Women can listen too. I mean, anybody can listen. It's just, I want, and this is why all our topics are about men issues.
Yeah.
So, no, I think it's great, man. I think we need more of that. You know, now we have these, you know, we have terms like toxic masculinity. So anything you do that's masculine is considered toxic. And, you know, the idea behind Grit on the Rocks was like making masculinity cool again, because it's an issue. It's like anything you even mention. Like I remember I didn't even run a promo. I just posted on a community page where I live, and I put, hey, real men talking about real issues. Check out.
In New York?
Yes. And the first thing, what do you mean real men? As opposed to what? I was like, all right, you see, we're not getting into this. So,
I just censored myself greatly, just so you know.
So, no, I think what you guys are doing is just great, man. I feel like I hope that, you know, speaking about it here and more people can know, there are people that battle with I like smoking cigars, but I shouldn't because it's XYZ.
Yeah.
Yes, the Bible does say, I mean, if it's a sin for you, then I mean, it's a sin for you. Don't do it. But I feel like a lot of people like myself have battled with that mentality because we were told that, not because we truly believe it, but we were told that we were hammered for years and years and years with the same thing, like even having a drink. And I remember I always say, like, in Spanish it says, no nos embriaguéis sino con el Espíritu Santo, right? So you shouldn't get drunk unless it's with the Holy Spirit.
Don't get drunk with wine, but be filled with the Spirit.
Yes.
So don't get drunk with wine in excess, but be filled with the Spirit.
So I used to use it as like, oh, well, then I could have one drink. Why not?
Yeah.
Forget it. Where I was from, it's like, no, that's a sin. You will lose your salvation. I was like, so this is where I got the, you're rebelling, because it's like, I was like, okay, so you're telling me God is standing with a board, let's just put it that way for visual aspects. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, he sinned, let me erase you, and then I get back, you know, in good grace, and he writes it again. I was like, I don't think that's how it works. But there still are churches in PR that teach that salvation can be lost in an instant.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so you have Philippians like 1:6. It says that Christ is faithful to finish what he started. You have John 6, where Christ says, I'll lose none that come to me. So any of Christ's sheep, he's not going to lose any. So your salvation's not secured by your works.
Mm-hmm.
It's secured by Christ. And so Christ's work on the cross, his death, his burial, and his ascension or his resurrection to the right hand of the Father is what we trust in. If we trust in our works, you're going to see you can lose your salvation. And that's the issue with a lot of doctrine or a lot of theology is we've made it all law, no gospel. The gospel, you know, Jesus said that he came to seek and save that which is lost. Mm-hmm. And so everybody's a sinner. We're all lost. And so when Christ finds us, he doesn't just forget us. He doesn't let us go. He doesn't lose us. And he continues to, the word is sanctification in English. The sanctify, it means to be made more saintly or to be made more holy. This is where you get your Catholic saints, things like that.
Yeah.
But the term or the requirements of your salvation is that you're a sinner. And the requirements to maintain your salvation is not your works. It's the faithful work of Christ. And so a lot of churches want to infuse righteousness
Mm-hmm.
with Christ, like good works with Christ. And the Bible doesn't teach that. That's foreign to the gospel. And so the gospel is the good news. The gospel is you can't save yourself. The gospel is Christ is the way, the truth, and life. And so if
Mm-hmm.
you trust in anything outside of that, yeah, you will fail. Yeah, you believe in a false gospel. So it's what Jesus says. He says, repent and believe the gospel. And that's the good news. The good news is we have a way out.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, okay. So we talked about you started your cigar company. How long you been in cigar business?
So I took a year and 6 months to develop my blends before they were like full blown on the market. I went through thousands of cigars, and then after I got my blends solidified, we've been on the open market for about 5 to 6 months right now, where we've actually been selling. So we've 2 years old as a company, six
Mm-hmm.
months on the market. We've made it to all 50 states. We've made it internationally. We're looking to franchise out in Canada and England and Australia. So like we have a lot of motion right now, and we have a lot of movement. And I think it is because men are tired of going to I would say feminine churches, and this is not a knock against the church. The church is Christ, and
Mm-hmm.
his church is always both feminine and masculine because both women and men are in there. But the understanding is like the the men have been so emasculated in their church settings that they haven't been able to be men.
Yeah.
And so as we've grown as a company, we like this weekend I'm going to a church conference. We're going to have an after party with my cigars. Next weekend I'll be at DFW doing an after party with our cigars for a Christian conference, and then I'll be in LA doing a private event for some Christians. And so, like the Christian world needs a revival of true masculinity, and it's not this Andrew Tate crap.
Yeah.
It's
I,
just men being men.
I think, yeah, I think it's needed everywhere, to be honest. And I know I'm in a city where, and it's, I believe, inclusion and all this stuff is all great. I just feel like, my opinion is, we don't need to lose one for the other.
Yeah,
Men should be allowed to be men. That's it. Bottom line.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so 1689 cigars. Everyone should go check it out. Okay. From there, then you just opened up a lounge, right?
Yeah, I'm actually sitting in the lounge right now. So yeah,
So you open
yeah.
up the Cigar Lounge, which is awesome. That's in Tennessee, right?
hmm Tennessee.
And now I see also you doing 1689 coffee.
Yeah, yeah. So coffee is going to be another adventure. So we'll have 1689 coffee, 1689 brewery, which will be our beer, and 1689 distillery, which will be our Tennessee whiskey and Kentucky bourbon. So we're moving all four of those companies. They're separate entities, but
Mm-hmm.
they will all carry the 1689 brand. And then we're working on this is something we haven't like publicly released, which I really don't care. We're working on something called Job Clothing Co. And so it's going to be, you've seen some of our graphics, like the duty of, I'll read it, it's right here. Duty is essential to manhood.
Mm-hmm.
It's like your duty as a man is to get up, provide, protect, love, cater, cherish,
Mm-hmm.
and so like we're going to really make a masculine company. Eventually, we're going to get into, we'll say, higher fashion, dress shirts, suits, things like that. But at the beginning, it's just going to be shirts and tees and
Yeah.
things of that nature. So yeah, we're doing a lot.
I see. I see. Before we started, I was telling my wife, I was like, yeah, I mean, this guy, he seems like I'm telling you, he's doing it all. I think it's great because I've been called scatterbrain because of that. Because it's like I want to do this, and while I'm doing this, I'm already thinking about I want to do this and I want to do
Yeah.
that, and sometimes people tell you like, oh, it's not possible, and I don't know, because chances showing me that it is possible.
I mean, I have some friends who run 80 different companies. They're multimillionaires, and they just know how to delegate work. And so
Yes.
that's the thing, is like you delegate work to people who you trust, people who are not lazy, people who are go-getters, people who see, like if you say, hey, I'm going to give you a commission for every cigar you sell, I guarantee you when somebody comes to the lounge, they're going to try selling them the entire house.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like you're giving incentives and you're not paying, you know, $10 an hour. Like I think wherever you're at is probably 17.50 for minimum wage. And so you're giving incentives that are mutually beneficial to the company and to the person.
Yeah.
And so it's getting back to that old school, you get what you work for.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen tons and tons of men just thrive. Like we're actually, you know, this, I'll talk about this too. We're releasing a thing where any podcast, so like your podcast, you
Mm-hmm.
could get your own. It wouldn't be a private liga. It wouldn't be a private blend, but it would be your own label. You pay $350, get your label slapped on our prototype cigars, and if you sell them anything above $7, that's what your profit is. So if you have 1,000 of them, you sell 1,000, you make $3 grand. You're
Mm-hmm.
1099 as an employee, so you'd be a private contractor. But we're really going to roll that out to podcasts, and there will be some people that we roll that out to. They'll make an extra $50,000 a year because they're go getters. Other guys will make an extra 1,000 because they're like, "That's cool. I have a cigar," you know. And so the the pushing or the drive, it's like, how much do you want to give? Like right now, I have to be at the airport in 4.5 hours, getting on a plane, and while I'm on the plane, I'm probably going to be I have about 50 emails to respond to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I'm young right now, younger, I guess I should say, and so might as well grind while I'm young while I can, and then when I get older, I'll rest like a king.
Dude, it sucks. I mean, I feel like I never grew up with any type of financial literacy. I knew nothing.
Yeah,
And I feel like I was always the different one in the family because I always had like that business mindset. I had my own like production company in Puerto Rico. This is before the world crashed and burned for me in 2012. 2012, it was a reset. My
yeah,
then wife passed away, and there was just so many expenses. I had to travel and leave everything behind. That by the time I got back home when she passed, I had lost everything. I went
yeah,
completely bankrupt. So I started from zero in 2012, which is towards the end of the year. After spending a year in PR again, I decided to move to New York, and I came
yeah,
here with nothing, just me and my son.
yeah,
So I've built from the ground up, and I mean, and I'm proud of what I've done.
yeah,
But it sucks that I learned so much of it later in life.
yeah. Here, I'm right there with you, man.
When COVID hit, oh shoot, you can work from home. So I was home for 6 months, and in those 6 months, I kid you not, I think I added like 10 years of knowledge to myself.
Yeah,
I did so much reading, so much research, so many YouTube videos. I
yeah,
took risk. So now it's like I'm 45 now.
yeah,
And it's like, all right, I wish I knew this young. And I tell my son I have a 24-year-old son and I have a 1-year-old daughter. So starting over.
yeah, man.
But I always tell my son, I was like, if I would have known half of what I know now at your age, I mean, when I was his age, I was already a dad, but I was like, things would be so much different because now I tell him the same thing. The time to grind is now. And then when you're older, then you live like a king.
Yeah,
So I'm still relatively young, you know.
yeah, man. 45 is nothing to wink at. That's the
So
new 20, man.
so I'm just working on my grind now, just putting things together. Like I do have tons of ideas, ambitions, and goals and dreams, and part of it is what I'm doing right now with this podcast. I truly enjoy this like so much. Like I've done podcasts before. All my podcasts have always been in Spanish.
Yeah,
And I was like, you know what? Maybe it's time to just talk about something different. I wanted to do a business podcast. That never happened. I couldn't find a co-host, and I was like, I don't want to sit in front of a camera by myself and just talk. This is before like Zoom was a thing.
Yeah.
So then I started, this is part of it. We spoke briefly, we messaged briefly about I wanted to start a line. I do like this idea about the whole, podcast having their own little, labels on it. So that's something we definitely going to talk about. But there's plenty of things, and I feel like I always went back to two things: real estate and media is my two like go-to things.
Yeah.
And a whole bunch of other stuff that I want to incorporate to that, but it's always those two. I always think of real estate as passive, quote unquote, passive income, something that I could build. And, once you reach your financial freedom, then I can move to like Tennessee or wherever I want to go.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about a job, because then I just do my media, do my real estate from anywhere around the world. So that's like the goal right there. But yeah. So 1689, where's the name come from?
It comes from the 1689 London Baptist Confession of Faith. So every one of our cigar lines have church history tied to them. So like we're doing the creeds. We're going to come out with the creedal line. And then we're going to come out with a martyr line, like Christians who are martyred through the ages. You probably know who Saint Boniface is, maybe. No. You said I was like a Catholic. But you said you weren't really grow up into.
I was a fake Catholic.
Yeah. So he was a Christian he was a Catholic priest who went to a place and he cut down Thor's oak, or Donner's oak. And then he built a tree out of it, because the pagans said, if you try to destroy this tree, Thor's going to kill you. Mm-hmm. And so Boniface, this old man, picks up the axe and just starts hacking away, chops that sucker down, builds the church, and the whole village converts. It's just a beautiful story. So like we're going to have that. We actually have Saint Nicholas. It's going to be called Deck the Heretic, because there's reports that he punched a dude named Arius in the face because he denied the Trinity. So like we're really leaning into church history. Church history is bloody and it's beautiful. Yeah. Like you have like this beauty of it's because like Christ promised the gates of hell shall never prevail against Christ's church. And so like and we're a Christian company, but when you see like this has been my experience, and I think it's probably yours as well. When you see the Jesus fish on a business, as you walk in, you first think this is going to be subpar. It's just because in our culture, Christians haven't ever made things beautiful. They think if you slap a Jesus fish on it, you get all the Christians and they're going to come there and buy your product. But that's not true, because you see Christian businesses who are subpar, they fail. And so we really wanted to be intentional with our Christian business, Christian witness, but we also want to offer like the best product possible. We just had a Davidoff rep. He came in here, talked to us, had some of our cigars. Can't give his name, but he was like, or a Perdomo rep, not Davidoff, a Perdomo rep, and he's like, dude, your cigars are just as good as ours. Really? And we have a Connecticut. I don't know.
Bold thing. I mean, I'm just speaking as a fan of Perdomo. Like they're like my favorite. I did get my order today of your cigars. I mean, I just got them like when I sent you the picture.
Which ones did you pick up?
It's a random. It's 10 randoms is what I got.
Was that the
package is here.
Yeah,
I opened them. I put them in the humidor. I was like, all right, let me just.
There's no bands on those ones, right?
No.
Yeah. Those are the we call it, not that they're budget smokes, but we just call them budget smokes. They're still premium A++. They're a little ugly, so we don't allow them to pass through.
Yeah. That's why I was like, I want to try. Since it said random, I was like, okay, so maybe I'll get a variety. I can try.
Did you get a variety? I don't pack those orders.
I got 2 packs of these.
Yeah.
I threw them in my humidor. I mean, I guess tomorrow I'll see if Fridays is usually, it's the days that I take out to just do my whole ritual of just sitting or going to a lounge and, having my whiskey, and that's my me time.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, speaking of Christian businesses and stuff like that, I agree. Some Christian businesses are subpar. I also look at the fact of, again, we go back to the mentality of what you're taught. Like I'm not trying to criticize Christians, but as a Christian, I think I had, like I told you, I had a production company.
Yeah.
And I really got screwed over by a lot of Christians because of the mentality of, oh, I should do this for free.
Yeah.
I should do this on the very, very, very cheap because God will bless me for that.
Yeah.
And it didn't work that way. Like, you got to have a business mindset.
Yeah, I mean that's the sin of usury, man. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And so we don't teach that in the church, and it needs to be taught on. So like my the other business owner, he was 567 pounds about 8 months ago. He's down 106 pounds, I think, is where he's at. And so like one of the biggest things that we've critiqued him on was his weight.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a part of the brotherhood to have people push you, and so there's a Proverbs that says iron sharpens iron.
Mm-hmm.
And it's referring to swords actually clinging together and
Mm-hmm.
battling. And so like in the third space, when we meet on Fridays, it's our little small Bible study. That's a part of it, is like we cling swords together. And you can't, like, as a man, when you guys have heated conversations, you can't just duck and run. That's an effeminate quality. And to define effeminacy, a woman can't be effeminate. Women are feminine. Effeminate is actually, like, the word that's used in the Greek would be, you can cut this out if you need to, but the receiver of sodomy. That's what's the word comes from.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the effeminate man. It's only the one who it's something a man can be.
Do you want me to cut it out? I mean, this is no bar when it comes to me.
Yeah, no. I sometimes people.
No, this is unfiltered.
Yeah. So like effeminate men are men who run away from the fire, men who run away from the gunshots, men who run away from just the basic tenets of being a man. And so, one of those things with our business partner, and maybe one day you'll interview him on here, and he'll talk a little bit more in this, was he saw this as, all right, it's my laziness. I'm going to die young. I'm not going to be able to provide for my family. And then, he just woke up and he gets that Goggins mentality. Like, I'm getting up today. I'm hitting it hard. Yeah. And so, he's up at 4 in the gym. That's him. He's killing it. And so like we've cultivated a culture, and we've actually cultivated a culture in our church too, where things like having whiskey or having a cigar, because everything in moderation is fine.
Mm-hmm.
What's out of moderation is when it's bad. And
Yes.
God pits drunkenness and gluttony in the same pair in Proverbs, because they're the same thing. It's the lack of control. And so if you're drunk, it's a lack of control. If you're gluttonous, it's a lack of control.
Yeah.
And so you see men getting together and sharpening one another. And I can say sometimes we were debating some theology a couple of weeks ago with a good brother of mine. And like he stands up and he starts pointing at me and he's like, da, 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 just rattle it off. And so that I stand up and I get animated and start pointing at him. And like there's some new guys that are and it's nothing, like we're not upset or anything. There's some new guys that are at the Bible study, and they're like, whoa, this was cool to see you two go at it. And then after, cheers, and then move on for the night.
That's awesome, man. I'm part of this. It's a starting group. It's called the Apex Gentlemen's Guild, and it's just men only. And the idea behind it is to, push men to do better. So right now, like, they have a Facebook group. Eventually, they want to turn it into like a social club, like get their own, spot wherever we can go and smoke cigars and just, have meetings and talk and, camaraderie and all that stuff. But the idea behind it is that it's just, push, in a positive way.
Yeah.
Do better, get up, go get it, and just motivation that, they post like content and stuff like that. I mean, I think it's, again, I just think it's important. I think men need more spaces that way. I love the fact that you guys have like a Christian based group. I think it's awesome. I don't know, man. I think we need something like that here in New York.
Yeah, man. Well, maybe you're the start of
Uh,
it. I know a lot of people in upstate New York. I actually had an event where we were going to be on a yacht going around the Statue of Liberty. I
mhm.
was doing a cigar event, but something happened with my tickets and I didn't get to make it. But they do that every year, and so next year when they do it, I will definitely hit you up when I'm in town and see if I can get
Yeah,
you.
dude, that'd be
The,
awesome.
these guys probably have more money on the yacht than I'll have ever in my life, but um, it's a pretty cool event. We do another one in DFW as well, but we're working on. So I'm working on another project. It's going to be called Summers Marketing, and so background of our cigar company. I started with $800 2 years ago. I'm not going to reveal financials, but let's
Mhm,
just say that's uh, over 1,000x with that investment. And
mhm,
so, like, you don't have to have an extreme amount of capital to get started. What you have to have is a good product, the ability to talk to people, the ability to relate, the ability to sell. And if you've done sales, the number one thing in sales is closing. And so if you can't close, then that's kind of the end of it. And
yeah.
so when you think of cigars and when you think of the culture, you're always around businessmen, and
Mhm.
it's one of the best networking situations I've ever been in. If my daughter wasn't born on July 26th, I would have been at the Bitcoin conference with Donald Trump and with the Daily Wire guys, and that's all because of cigars.
Yeah.
And so like you're in this place where money just flows and there's a lot of capital. So if you have a good business pitch, you have a pitch deck and you're ready to go, like there's so much money to be made. And right now, like Dana White, he says if you're a monster, you're gonna take this world by storm because people don't have that heart anymore. We've been
Hmm.
indoctrinated to just go to school and get A's and B's.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's true. It's true. I mean, it's what I tell my wife. I was like, one of the things that I most like about the whole cigar culture is, the conversations that start, the places it gets you to. Like I've met people like business owners that it's just crazy because it all started. I was talking with a friend and we talk about cigars. Oh, I know this person, and it just keeps going, and it's put me in places that I don't think I've ever would have gotten there if it weren't for a cigar. I mean, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now if it weren't for cigars.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, I love that about it. I do. I love. I was I was very introvert, and I'm still working on that. Very, I'm trying to be more social and put myself out there because again, you read all these books, you watch all these videos, you learn so much about the business world, and it always comes down to networking.
Yeah,
You got
that's
to
what it
put
is.
yourself in those places, in those rooms with those people, and so I mean, I've gotten very comfortable with that, just being the dumbest one in the room and just asking questions and just learning.
Yeah.
I love that.
One of my biggest networking things that happened to me, we were at a private event in Texas, and I had no idea who these guys were. One of my friends said, "Hey, there's a whole bunch of politicians and trust fund guys on the back porch." He goes, "You have whiskey and cigars. Go introduce yourself." And so I just walked down the back porch, had the whiskey, had
Hmm.
the cigars, and I said, "Hey guys, thanks for the invite." And I just went and sat down, and I made some of the most meaningful business connections
Love it.
in 3 hours over some whiskey and cigars. And so the culture is there and it's
Yeah.
growing, and there is a revival of masculinity taking place in the States. I mean, you can go look at the numbers of how young men are pulling more and more to the right,
Yeah.
but the opposite is true too. Young women are
Mhm.
pulling more and more to the left.
Left. Yep.
So yeah, there's going to be I don't know what's going to happen in the next 40 years, but it's going to be a fun ride.
I don't know.
I'm in Tennessee, so I felt a lot safer than New York.
Oh no, I agree. Yeah, I need to, and don't get me wrong, I love the city life. I love the convenience of it. I love the opportunities that are here. I love, like my son's in his 20s now, and he went to college, and the connections and meaningful relationships he's made. If we were back in PR where we're from, he would never made that, and I'm very grateful for that. And, and I want my daughter to be exposed to so many cultures and, just cultural stuff and just, the arts. And I love all that about New York City. It's just when it comes to politics and, the laws and laws on crime, I can't get behind it.
And your governor getting caught in a really big scandal after COVID.
God, so all of that is just like, all right, I need to be in a country somewhere. I mean, me and my wife have always said, like, if we ever move, we would like to keep this apartment just so that we can go and, come back and visit and always have a place to stay. So
have an Airbnb or something.
Yeah, probably. But I need to be in the country.
Yeah, man. Well, if you ever looking, I have great connections here for real estate. Tennessee, Kentucky line is beautiful.
I was looking into Kentucky, funny, like today, since I saw when I got the package, I was like, oh, so they're in Kentucky. Okay. And it's just, I'll randomly just start checking my phone. I was like, it's how the real estate is. I was like, oh, I saw some pretty decent properties at very good prices.
Yeah, extremely good prices around here.
I just gotta look at the whole like rental market and blah blah blah. Do my research.
Yes. So the renter laws are really good too. So
love it. All right, Chan. So I want to respect your time. I really do appreciate this. This conversation was great. It's just and I hope all of you listening, get some value out of this. Again, if you were like me that struggled with that mentality of, can I do this and love God and worship? I mean, I learned a ton, to be honest, just by that Facebook page, and it helped me. It really gave me a different perspective, and I don't know, it helped me. So
most of those guys in there are pastors, just so you know. That's
I've seen. That's what I'm saying. This is just, it was mind blowing.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for your time. I definitely hope we stay in contact. There are a few things that I would like to discuss with you afterwards. We can just shoot messages, whatever it is, and all of you listening, check out 1689, right?
Yeah, 1689cigars.com.
You can check them out. Check them out on Facebook. Are you guys have an Instagram?
Yeah, we have an Instagram. It's growing. We're at like 7,000 followers on Instagram.
Right,
so
check them out. Facebook, Instagram, 1689cigars.com. Support. They're coming out with the coffee and the brewery, and they have the Cigar Lounge, and I wish you guys the best. Thank you so much again. So, all of you listening, till next time, this is Grit on the Rocks podcast, Friday Fumas edition. Stay gentlemanly, stay classy.